Lots of you have shared that you like the way we break down ideas, complexities on this channel, but to be honest with you, I have always been a very scattered thinker. You've seen my obsidian, I thrive in the chaos, and when I was a little kid, it was so frustrating to me that I couldn't explain the things that I was excited about. I always started at least step 3 without going back to the beginning because I forgot the person who's listening to me doesn't have all the context that's happening in my head. And so I worked on it, and today I'll share with you the 5 things that really helped me go from just ramble and blah blah into here's a structure, here are the things that you need to focus on. And so let's start from law school when I first got real training on being articulate. Number 1 is about increasing your information density. If you watch legal dramas, I'm sure you've heard of phrases like attorney-client privilege or pleading the fifth.
My client would like to exercise his Fifth Amendment rights at this time.
These are really concise concepts that explain things like the communication between you and your attorney are confidential, or that you can invoke the Fifth Amendment, which protects you not to answer questions or give information that might incriminate you. Instead of saying all of this, we just use 3 words, right? Attorney-client privilege or pleading the fifth. This is the first difference between someone who's articulate and someone who's not. It's about, are you using vague words, phrases that require a lot of explaining? Or are you using pinpointed, concise words and phrases that get your specific point across? Here's an everyday example. Say, I'm reading this book and lots of people ask me, so how do you like the book? Most people would say something along the lines of, oh yeah, it's interesting. It's about this philosopher, an Anaximander. It's about scientific thinking and blah blah blah. Or you can tweak this into something a bit more specific. Just take the word interesting. We use it all the time. And what does it mean? It just conveys a semi-positive feeling towards something. If you just even simply change interesting to it was surprising, or it's a very idea-rich book, or it's really entertaining, then all of a sudden you're conveying so much more information with just one change in the word. So step number 1 is increase your information density with the right choice of words. Number 2 is about using timeless structures when you communicate. This one I learned in law school and was pounded in me over and over again in management consulting. We started law school learning PEEL: point, explain, evidence, and link. It's so simple. Every time you're preparing a statement, preparing arguments, just fill in the blanks. What is the point? What is the explanation? What is the evidence? And how does it link back to the broader point? And then in consulting, I started to see more of these. For example, SCQA. Situation, complication, question and answer. We use that everywhere when we're doing proposals. Again, just fill in the blanks. You don't have to worry about how do I structure this, start from scratch every time. There are timeless structures for this. In consulting, whenever we're doing presentations, it was always the pyramid principle. You start with your answer first, then you go to your supporting arguments, and then you go to your supporting data. Every single time, it's about filling in the blanks of these timeless structures. And if you pay attention, you'll see these structures repeated again and again, right? Sometimes you see them in TED Talks, like SCQA. That's such a commonly used structure. Other times you'll see people answering executive questions with the pyramid principle, right? Answer first, and then you go into other things. In email writing, you see that all the time as well. I talk about this in my 5-minute communication framework course as well. So by having even a few sets of these structures, like the ones I mentioned today, you can already start to change the way that you're structuring your thoughts. Which brings us to the question, so how do I find these structures? And that's step number 3, think in frameworks. I've done a whole dedicated video on this, so if you haven't seen it, check it out after this. And if you're new to framework thinking, then at the core of it, it's about taking complexity and boiling it down to a simple representation of how something works. Let me give you an example. Let's take something really big, really complex, like what do humans want to achieve in their lifetime? What is it that humans want? Most people will take this and say, oh, well, I don't know, like all of us want love, want money, some people want fame and power, and others, want freedom, and you're pulling at all of these in a very unstructured way. Or if you think in frameworks, what you would come back to is, okay, there are 5 things that we look for. At the very bottom, it's about physiological needs, like do I have food, do I have water, do I have shelter? And then once we satisfy that, we're looking for safety, personal security, we're looking for resources, health, wealth. Then it's about love and belonging, right? Do we have a community? Do we have friends, family? Do we have that sense of belonging? And once we have that, it's about esteem. Do I have the respect for myself? Do other people respect me? And all of that leads to the one thing that we really want, which is self-actualization. Can I live up to my potential? Can I do the things that I want to do? And those are the 5 things that we care about. a completely different answer from the random one that we're polling through, even though the core ideas are all there. It's just structured in a different way and is put into the framework of Maslow's hierarchy. And this is the power of framework thinking. By condensing knowledge, organizing knowledge into a framework where it's very concise, it's very condensed, it is, information dense, you're able to train yourself to start look for these and also to repeat them to other people. As you can see, instead of scrambling for random thought, you have a very structured way of communicating something. And over time, not only does this help you train yourself to speak better, you also create a better understanding of how the world works. You start to map random frameworks and start to link them together. And that is really the power of framework thinking, because once you think clearly, you're going to be able to communicate all your ideas very clearly. All right, once we are precise with our words, we have structures, we have frameworks that are starting to link together. Then the next thing we want to do is, of course, practice. Most people have problems with impromptu speaking, right? We don't know what other people are going to ask us. We don't know if we'll have the answers. We don't know what kind of audience is going to be listening to us and how they'll react. And that's a huge source of anxiety. And to practice, it means to start way before we're in that situation. And for me, I practice by writing. You write to think. And that's step number 4, which is write to think clearly. And I don't mean writing essays and articles. I mean simply writing notes. If you know the channel, you know I use Obsidian for my personal knowledge management system. And every single time I jot down a note, I practice articulating myself. The first thing is the title of my notes are always a condensed summary of the point of the note. So I train myself already to be precise, to start practicing how can I condense all of my notes into one sentence. I avoid vague words like on creativity, right? That doesn't really tell you what this note is about. I try to make it as specific as possible. Like creativity as intelligence, or creativity is about making connections. I'm trying to get that concise point across. Then in the body of the note, there are a few things I do as well. First, I am listening to Lumen and rewriting it in my own words. I rephrase what the author is saying about this. I'm practicing how would I concisely convey this idea. This is the Zettelkasten method. If you haven't seen this, you can check this video out. Number 2, I also use structures. Simple ones like speaking in threes. What are the 3 key points out of everything that was said in this article, in this book, in this video, in this podcast that are important to me? Or it's about writing out the idea compass. There's so many different structures I can use. And the third thing, of course, is find frameworks, not just to mindlessly consume, but reorganize the information into a framework for myself so I can not only retain the information better, but recall it better when I need to use it again, when I need to talk about it again. All this prep work is low stakes. It's not in those impromptu situations because I want to be prepared for those. I'll have things to draw on when I'm asked an unexpected question. Communicating clearly is a long game. And this brings me to step number 5. It's a long game because it's not just about the ideas, it's also about the human connection. We're communicating not just to get ideas across, but we're trying to get a feeling across. Like when I do business presentations, I'm not just laying out the facts. What I'm trying to do is inspire change, right? Get people on board, get them excited, motivate them somehow. So that part of the emotional part of the communication is also really important. And here I use another framework, and it's soften. Smile, open posture, forward-leaning, tone, eye contact, and nod. As they say, body language is as important as the message itself. So we have to cover both of our bases. And on the idea front, if you want to learn more about framework thinking, I got this video here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!